Welcome back my channel Shattered Trust Stories. The clock ticked in the corner of the room, a constant reminder of time slipping away. David sat on the couch, his eyes glued to the television, but his mind wasn't there. His thoughts raced, circling around one thing, his wife, Sarah. He could feel something was off, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. She had been distant for months, always busy, always on her phone, always finding excuses. He didn't want to believe it, but the truth had been staring him in the face for too long that he wanted to ask, to confront her, but what if he was wrong? What if he was just paranoid? Every time he thought about bringing it up, his heart raced and doubt crept in, but today was different. Today, he would find out the truth. Sarah came home late, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor as she walked in, not even looking up at him. Her hair was a little too perfect, her smile too forced. He had seen that look before. That's when it hit him. This was it. This was the moment that would either tear his world apart or confirm his worst fear. "Hey, babe, how was work?" David asked, trying to sound casual, but his voice cracked. He didn't recognize it, he was nervous. Was it all in his head? Sarah paused for a moment, a flicker of hesitation in her eyes, but she quickly masked it with a smile. It was fine. Busy. You know how it is. She dropped her purse onto the counter and immediately grabbed her phone. David watched her, his heart pounding. He couldn't stand the way she was avoiding him, the way she was pretending everything was normal when it clearly wasn't. "We need to talk," he said, the words coming out before he could stop them. Sarah looked up, her eyes meeting his for the first time all evening. "Talk about what?" she asked, her voice calm, but there was something else behind it, fear, maybe. Or guilt. His palms began to sweat, but he forced himself to stay calm. "You've been distant, Sarah. 4 months now. I just need to know if there's something going on. If you're hiding something from me." Her eyes flickered, but only for a second. Then she took a deep breath, a mask of calm settling over her face. "David, you're being paranoid. Nothing is going on. Work has just been a lot, and I'm sorry if I've been distant." But David didn't buy it. He'd seen that look before. That defensiveness. The way she'd closed off. David's mind raced. Should he press her? Should he let it go for now? But his instincts told him not to back down. "I saw something today," he said, his voice shaking. He hadn't planned on revealing what he had discovered, but he couldn't hold it in any longer. "I saw a message on your phone. From him." Sarah's face immediately went pale. She dropped her phone onto the counter, her hands trembling. "David, please, it's not what you think," she stammered, but her voice cracked, betraying her. David's blood ran cold. "Him? Your ex?" Sarah didn't say anything, but her silence said it all. She couldn't look him in the eyes. That's when the truth hit him like a freight train. His wife, the woman he had trusted with everything, had been seeing someone else. And it wasn't just anyone, it was her ex. "How long, Sarah? How long have you been lying to me?" His voice was low, cold, filled with a rage he hadn't known he had. I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered, tears starting to form in her eyes. "It just happened." But David was beyond hearing her excuses. The damage was done. Days passed, but the silence between them was suffocating. Sarah tried to apologize, but her words felt hollow. David couldn't bring himself to forgive her, not yet. He needed answers. He needed the truth. Late one night, when Sarah was asleep, David sat in front of his laptop, his fingers trembling as he typed her ex's name into a search engine. What he found made his stomach turn. There were photos of Sarah with him, laughing, kissing, their chemistry undeniable. David had always trusted Sarah. He never thought she would betray him like this. But the evidence was undeniable. The final blow came when he discovered the messages, hundreds of them, exchanged between Sarah and her ex. The intimacy in their words, how they talked about their past, about what they missed, about what they wanted to do together. It was all there, every single detail. His mind was a blur of rage, betrayal, and pain. But in that moment, something inside him clicked. He wasn't going to let her get away with this. He wasn't going to be a victim anymore. David decided to fight back, but not with anger or confrontation. No, he would be smarter than that. He was going to play it cool, to act as if everything was fine, while he quietly made his plans. Years passed. David moved on. He focused on his work, his friends, his life. He rebuilt himself, piece by piece. But just when he thought he could finally put the past behind him, Sarah showed up again. One morning, there was a knock at the door. David opened it, only to find Sarah standing on the porch, holding a child. His child? No, it couldn't be David. Sarah's voice trembled, and there was a look of desperation in her eyes. This is Ethan. He's yours. David froze. He looked at the boy in Sarah's arms. The resemblance was undeniable. The boy had his eyes. But how could this be possible? He thought back to their time together, to everything he knew. Could this child really be his? After everything that had happened, could Sarah have kept this secret from him all these years? You don't have to do this, Sarah. I've moved on, David said, his voice steady, though his heart was racing. Why are you here now? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I never meant to hurt you, David. But this is your son. He needs to know you. Please just give him a chance. David stared at the boy, his mind racing. He was conflicted, angry, confused, and yet a part of him wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that somehow, in the chaos, this could still be fixed, but then, he remembered everything. The lies. The betrayal. The affair. He wasn't about to let her manipulate him again. I'm not doing this, he said, his voice firm. You've lied to me once. I'm not going to fall for it again. But Sarah didn't give up. She had a plan of her own. She insisted that they take a DNA test, to prove once and for all that the child was his. David reluctantly agreed, though every part of him wanted to walk away from it all. A week later, the results came in. David sat alone in his living room, the envelope in his hands. His heart raced as he opened it, his fingers trembling. He read the results. The child was indeed his, but that wasn't the only thing that shocked him. There was a second revelation, something more sinister. The DNA test revealed that Sarah had been lying about the timing of the affair. The child wasn't just his, it was the result of the affair, conceived long before Sarah claimed. The truth hit him like a freight train. David's rage boiled over, but this time, he wasn't going to let it consume him. He knew exactly what he had to do. He wasn't going to let Sarah manipulate him, not anymore. He used everything he had learned, the messages, the photos, the lies, and he took it all to a lawyer. A divorce lawyer. And this time, there would be no compromise. No second chances. Sarah's world crumbled around her when the court papers were served. The affair, the lies, the manipulation, all of it came to light. She tried to fight back, but the truth was on David's side. The final victory wasn't about the revenge, though. It was about David reclaiming control over his life. He walked out of the courtroom, head held high, his heart finally at peace. Sarah had thought she could have it all, her affair, her lies, and her family. But in the end, it was David who had the last word. David stood outside the courthouse, the weight of the past finally lifting off his shoulders. He had been through hell, but he had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to move on. He looked up at the sky, a faint smile forming on his lips. In the end, justice had been served. And no matter what Sarah tried to do, she couldn't take that away from him.